We're excited for you to experience this summer a new roguelite-inspired journey into Niflheim, the spectacular realm of the dead. And stay tuned until the end of the year for one last surprise. We will reveal the last episode of Ivor's story as a free chapter for all players as well.
In Assassin's Creed, history has always been our playground, and Discovery Tour is the ideal game mode to discover and learn, with content free of violence and tailored for learning. It is perfectly suitable for all audiences, including schools. For the Assassin's Creed Valhalla team, immersing players in the long-gone world of the Vikings and the Saxons has been a driving passion. Encouraged by feedback from teachers and students, we are proud to take a new step in facilitating access to learning by releasing today a standalone version of Discovery Tour Viking Age for Xbox and PlayStation consoles, as well as Stadia and Luna streaming platforms. We're also honored to be partnering with McGill University in Canada to develop curriculum guides for teachers and students available online for free to help them make the most of Discovery Tour Ancient Egypt, Ancient Greece, and Viking Age as learning tools for the classroom. We want to celebrate our 15th anniversary with you by releasing a free title update that our community has been passionately asking for. 60 frames per second support for Assassin's Creed Origins is now available. Experience Ancient Egypt under the reign of Cleopatra, now in 60 FPS on Xbox and PlayStation next-gen consoles. To celebrate with all of our players, we will be hosting a free weekend for Assassin's Creed Origins from June 16th to June 20th. The beautiful world of ancient Egypt is a great place to start revisiting and celebrating past Assassin's Creed games. Our 15th anniversary is about rewarding you for your incredible support. To get started, several sets of Assassin's Creed Origins tattoos, along with a naval pack, will be available this week in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Right now, head to our anniversary website and learn more on how to get involved with the celebrations. Take part in our weekly challenges for a chance to earn prizes and share your favorite Assassin's Creed memories by using hashtag AC15 as we leap into history. Join us this September as we unveil the future of Assassin's Creed during a very special event. We can't wait to show you what's in store.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Assassin's Creed 15th Anniversary Celebration event. My name is Yusuf. I'll be one of your hosts today. I'm joined by my co-host, Chassie Vicencio. Chassie, how are you today?
Hey, I'm excited. That was very exciting stuff. So I'm happy to be here to celebrate Assassin's Creed with all of you. And we have a special guest, Yusuf.
Oh, yes, we do. We are joined by Assassin's Creed producer, Jose Ariza. Jose, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is exciting and thrilling all at once.
Yes, we are very happy to be showcasing all the news and announcements that y'all just saw. But we're also going to be hanging out with y'all for a little bit right now and showing off the Assassin's Creed Origins 60 frames per second boost. We're playing it right now. As you can see, I am riding on the back of my camel on the way to Alexandria. Jose, this game was already beautiful, silky smooth. The 60 frames per second boost just makes it doubly more so. It feels so good to play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting. I just reloaded it into my console. I started playing it again, and it's amazing just seeing it sort of refreshed and I don't know. There's a certain elegance to it. The desert, the grandiosity of it. It's pretty awesome to see it in 60 frames and see how beautiful it looks.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I haven't been back to Egypt, in quite some time now. I think it's been about, like 2 years since I've played Origins, and it just feels so good to be back. I started a new game plus here. You can see I'm already level 55.
Yeah, you've already
awesome.
played plenty of this game, so now you're jumping back into New Game Plus.
Yes, exactly.
As one does. Yeah, but it looks beautiful. Jose, so let's celebrate this game, celebrate Assassin's Creed. So yeah, Origins, tell us about your role on this game. You were producer.
God, that feels like a lifetime ago. So at that point, I believe I was associate producer, and I was in charge of basically being the liaison with all other co-dev studios. It was a massive production, and it was my pleasure to be able to work with all the studios that were participating. You know, Sofia, Singapore, Bucharest. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Sorry, but it's been it's been quite a while, and it was amazing being part of this production. It was also officially my first full Assassin's Creed production, as I had just joined the studio, and it was amazing, being part of this entire production with so many awesome, talented people, passionate people. It was also a really interesting time of the franchise, obviously re-envisioning what Assassin's Creed would be for the future. So it was thrilling and nerve-wracking, to say the least.
I imagine there must have
Absolutely.
been a lot of excitement and maybe internal pressure that you were feeling of bringing the game back, the brand back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Assassin's Creed is beloved by players around the world, right? And there's a certain expectation of what the brand is, what the brand, the tenets, the pillars of the brand. It was really fascinating trying to find out how do we bring Assassin's Creed into an open world? How do we give agency to the players of how they play it, how they consume, and there were so many changes. It's funny watching it right now. It feels like, yeah, of course, this is exactly how it should have been. For the player perspective, maybe, this feels like, yes, of course, why would it be anything other than this? But when you're on the other side of, pre-production, production, asking all those questions of, what is the DNA of the brand? What is really Assassin's Creed? The areas where we could experiment or not, or evolve the brand, and certain things that we absolutely wanted to keep. So yeah, it was fascinating. It was preserving the DNA while evolving at the same time.
Speaking that as long as you talk about DNA, my favorite thing and the one thing to me that I never get tired of in Assassin's Creed is these sync points. And so as long as these are here, I'm always going to be a happy camper. It's just one of my favorite things. I never get tired of them, even after doing them across every AC so many times. It's, to me, nothing showcases what the verticality, the beauty of AC like those.
Yeah, even that's a perfect point, right? People assume that sync points are always there. They're a given. They're hit the easy button and it's done. But even within the context of Egypt, right? Like saying, how do we want the camera to move? Oh my God, now we're in a massive open world and you can see very far into the background. Making sure that it was the right camera movement, the right speed, all these little things that players don't see. We had to reassess under this, open world scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way,
say that.
Sorry.
Go
go ahead. I was gonna say. By the way, I noticed that my camera is really bright. This is obviously to be in the
You're
desert.
bathed in light.
Yeah. It's I'm in the desert.
He's coming to us live from Alexandria. That's.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Also, yes, we are live. We can see the chat, so if you have any questions about AC Origins for Jose, drop them in the chat and we'll ask them. So yes, we do see you, and Yusuf is playing in real time right now, so that is happening. We are playing this AC Origins in 60 FPS on PS5. It's also available on Xbox Series X and S, so you can jump into that. And if you missed that video earlier, there's a free weekend coming for AC Origins, June 16th to the 20th. So if you haven't played or want to jump back in, go for it on Xbox and PlayStation next-gen consoles and play 60 FPS. But yeah, we are live, so if you have questions, please let us know in the chat. But Jose, I'll start with a question for you. So I saw an internal interview with you at Ubisoft, and you said your best memory was working here was E3 2017, and you said getting AC Origins into people's hands for the first time. So can you tell me more about that and what that moment was like?
Yeah. Oof. Let me see if I can vocalize it right. you know, the production had already been going, I think, for 3 years at a time, and everybody was working really hard to re-envision, to move the brand, to evolve the brand into this new open world. You know, there's a lot of changes that went into this. We went from a mission-driven system to a quest-driven system that you could consume however you wanted. There were so many changes that went into this, and obviously, the people that work in the brand love the brand, they love Assassin's Creed, and is sort of doing this meditation of everything we wanted to bring into Origins. And obviously, every choice we made was because we really truly felt, every director, every producer, everybody in the team that really felt that was the right choice, the right thing to do. But nobody had seen it. So for me specifically, being part of that E3, doing the private demos, there was this moment of exhilaration that you're happy to share what the team has been working on. And especially for me, you know, I was thrilled to be able to be on the floor, to give the demos, to represent the team and the directors and everybody. And you know, it's a huge honor to be part of the brand and to represent everybody's hard work and talent. But on the other hand, it was nerve-wracking. You know, nobody had seen it.
Only imagine.
Nobody knew what it was. Yeah. And you give the controller to a player. A lot of them are media. A lot of them are streamers, YouTuber, some celebrities even. You know, we're in LA at E3. And there's this moment that you're super proud, you're super excited, you want to show it. But also a part of you is saying, "Oh my God, please like it." And we hope that that you see what we see. We hope that that this really our vision translates and it's able to be understood by people. And those very first demos that I gave, it was phenomenal. You know, that fear, but also, you know, you're looking, you give the controller to somebody and you're looking at them and you're like, yeah, no, yeah, you know.
It's like, so are you like just directly looking? Are you kind of looking away, or are you just like nervous about that? That sounds very nervous.
In some cases, some people say, no, you drive. I want you to see you play it.
Yeah.
You also get some of the media people that are so stoic, and you're playing, you're explaining, and then you know, their total poker face, just like, and you don't know, like, are you loving it? Are you hating it? You know, and at the same time, as we progress, giving more demos, I think there was one person that actually said, "You've given me the Assassin's Creed that I never knew I wanted, and it's phenomenal."
Oh my gosh.
You can probably see me getting a little emotional because it was so amazing just being there and seeing people say, "This is exactly." I didn't know I wanted this, but this is exactly what it should be. You know, giving the demos also, you noticed all the NPCs. You know, we had the smart, you know, the Meta AI network. Having the same demo or having people play the exact portion of the game, but seeing different results, seeing different enemies, you know, the wildlife. At some point I saw, I think it was an alligator and a hippo get into a fight, and the guy's like, "Oh, was that supposed to happen?" And I said, "No, honestly, I've never seen that. I don't know what, you know, what events happened for those two animals to be in that location and fight." But it was super, it was nerve-wracking and it was amazing, and it was such a communal sigh of relief and saying, yes, we did deliver. Yes, people agree with our vision. You know, we still held the pillars of the brand, the DNA, and yeah, it was I think cathartic. It was a very cathartic moment for me, you know, and you know, and it was also my my first Assassin's Creed production, right? So for me, there was also that element of I'm joining sort of at this time of change, at this nexus of change, and you know, you're thinking, God, please, I hope it goes well. I hope that
That's an exciting time to join, though. Yeah, that sounds like an ideal time.
Exciting and also, yeah, and also terrifying, right? You know,
sure.
we always do our best work, hoping that everybody will love it, hoping that everybody will be entertained. You know, it's sort of that saying that nobody has an ugly baby, right? So it's that moment where you show people the baby and you're like, I hope people like the baby, you know.
Speaking of, I love this scene so much. It's our first introduction to Aya here.
Aya's great.
And like I think to me, like, it was just so cool seeing a husband and wife that were like in love and you know, like obviously, you know, they are on a quest to avenge the death of their, you know, son, but it was like it was a healthy relationship, and I feel like that's something that's so rare to see in games.
Yeah, you know, and it's amazing also that you get to see the trajectory of from the past to the present, if you want to say to the future, when you meet them again in the hidden ones. And you know, we were so attuned to their relationship that we felt, you know, in the hidden ones we needed to acknowledge, right? They have that moment where we're sort of them saying, you know what, it's okay, we did well.
Yeah.
But seeing that trajectory, and it's funny because it wasn't a big speech, it wasn't melodramatic. It was just a moment where I feel, and I hope that we captured that the journey as a couple, as people, as human beings that they had, and in the end, just saying, you know what, we don't need to give a big speech. We're okay. We're cool.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually it's. I'm so happy you bring that up. That is one of my favorite moments in gaming. Period. It's just after Bayek and Aya have been, you know, separated at the end of you know, the game, and them coming back together and reuniting there for that moment. And there's a shot where they, you know, their foreheads touch and like they embrace, and like it fills my heart every time.
It's super nice to hear you say that. You know, I know the narrative team worked really hard to give value to that moment without being giving over exposition of what the player should or should not be feeling, or what Bayek and Aya should be feeling. So it was that subtlety, I think, was represented throughout the game, right? Carrying the spectrum of emotions of you know, Bayek's quest, his motivations, Aya's motivation, the rift between them, all these little things that, you know, we want the player to be emotionally connected to.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a complete success, at least, you know, for me. That's my opinion on it.
No, agreed. Very strong story. Just their relationship is just something you don't forget from this series. It's just so well written.
We get the first hidden blade.
Yeah, I'll show it.
Ooh, be careful.
Don't point that at your face.
There you go.
There you go. There you go.
I will go to the palace and discover who uses the seal of the snake.
It's funny too, Jose. You know, you were saying earlier, you know, you were talking about showing this game to people for the first time, and them, you know, saying, "Oh, this isn't," you know, I didn't realize this is what I wanted, but it's exactly what I wanted. I had a slightly similar but slightly different impression of when Origins was first announced and when we first got to play it. It was also, you know, at the very beginning of my Ubisoft journey here. But the way I don't think I've actually told you, I happen to be Egyptian. And so Origins is always the game I wanted, but never actually thought I would ever get. And then
you were not the only one.
Yeah,
that was a top request by the fans.
Yeah. But you know, I think even more so, you know, as you're talking about the new you know, quest system and how much was put into. Actually, I don't think I'm going the right way. How much was put into the culture, the time period, the setting. To me, it felt like a game that so wholeheartedly embraced Egypt and its people. You know, not only of the time, but you know, the location itself, and it was everything I could have hoped for and more. And I always say, because of that, it's the most important Assassin's Creed to me.
That's amazing to hear. You know, and back when we were doing the press tour for Origins, one of the proudest speaking points for me was all the research that went into this, all the, the working with Egyptologists, trying to absorb, and we're not just Assassin's Creed as a brand. It's not just about being in a setting and a place, but understanding, right? Honoring the magnitude of what used to be the Egyptian Empire at that point. Understanding the context, understanding the the significance of Cleopatra, right? That was everybody knows Cleopatra, but I don't think everybody appreciates all the nuance to her rising to power. You know, the fact that the pyramids were already ancient by the time she arrived. All this layer upon layer upon layer, and you know, we really. I was obviously one of the masses that had never really dug too deep, so we know pop culture references of Egypt. We know the pyramids exist. We know the Sphinx. We know Cleopatra. You know, we know all these things because they're sort of in the ether out there, right? But digging into this and really, at least for me, educating myself and seeing this represented in 3D on the screen with elegance, with respect, and really honoring, you know, like how magnificent it really was. So it's amazing to hear you say that, and I think that's one of the awesome things about Assassin's Creed in general, like being able to reflect and honor some of these older cultures.
Absolutely, and
Absolutely.
you know, I know I'm not alone in this when I say that I have learned a ton about history through Assassin's Creed, going all the way back to the very first game, and I'm sure, you know, every time we play these games, we have people coming out in chat telling us, you know, that they've learned as much from AC as they have from a textbook. And I know, you know, that Discovery Tour is something that was implemented for the first time with the Origins. I was wondering if you could, you know, speak a little bit about that. And, you know, obviously Viking Age now is coming standalone to consoles as well. You know, what has that whole experience been like?
I would love to answer your question, but I have a question for you first.
Oh, hit me.
Was there anything that you didn't know, you know, coming from Egypt, that you didn't know that you learned while playing Origins, that you were like, oh, that's surprising?
You know, that's a really good question. So I actually thought I knew quite a bit because I studied classical architecture. That was what my, you know, degree was in. So I studied Greek, Roman, and to a little lesser extent Egypt. So I wasn't super familiar with Egyptian architecture in that way. But one of the things that I love that I never really realized, because even when you do study Egyptian architecture, it's usually not of this time period. It's usually, you know, the pyramids and you know, the old kingdom. And so one of the things that I think Origins does such a good job of that I never really realized is that at the time of Cleopatra, you know, Cleopatra is essentially as much Greek as she is Egyptian, and you know, this is a time when the Romans are coming to Egypt, when they're, you know, Alexandria is a Greek city, and the thing that this game showed to me and taught me was that, you know, at this time during Ptolemaic Egypt, Egyptians themselves were kind of second-class citizens in their own homeland. So that was something I learned just by playing the game, not even getting into Discovery Tour and all the things you learn in Discovery Tour. So that's my answer for you.
You know, it's interesting. Like, obviously, seeing Alexandria be reconstructed, because you know, it had to be reconstructed from all the information, data, plans that we had. You know, how much of it doesn't exist, right? Right. It's you know. But anyways, to answer your question about Discovery Tour, it was all this research, right? We had to do an amazing amount of research. We collaborated with museums around the world, trying to get artifacts, scans, information. We obviously knew that we wanted to be as genuine as possible and get as much information as we could to be educated, right? And to really pay homage to the culture. During all the research, working with, you know, Egyptologists and really absorbing this, we realized there's so much mystery, magic, so much information that hasn't been, you know, collected in a way that could be digested. And obviously we wanted to share this information, right? It's like we wrote a thesis on Egyptology, but how do you share that without saying, wait, stop the gameplay, stop fighting that dude, and listen to this story that we have to tell you.
Right.
And you know, that was basically how Discovery Tour was born, saying, you know, we've learned so much, and there's so much here that is so exciting and mysterious and amazing. How do we share that? And obviously going through the thought process of, well, we want this to be accessible not just for players but also for children and schools. Okay, you know, we need to remove the combat, we need to make it as accessible as possible. We need to highlight. We can't share everything, but how do we highlight? And you know, you've seen even with the Discovery Tour the evolution, you know, from Origins to now the Viking Age, we're still trying to find ways to entertain while being educational. And I know educational is not a loved word by everybody, but there's a lot of really cool stuff that you read it, and you know, like the factoid about the pyramids were already there when Cleopatra ascended to the throne, and they were already ancient. You know, people, when I share that with people, a lot of people would say, "What? Oh, I thought they were built for her," or all this like information that is not correct, that is out there in the ether, correcting it and really helping people to contextualize that. This is an ancient civilization that rose to amazing heights for that period, and even the occupation, right, of the Romans, how long they coexisted together. Cleopatra ascending to the throne as a woman, and after the failure of her, the other pharaohs, all this was super intriguing, and it was phenomenal to learn about, and also to share with people through the Discovery Tour.
Yeah, and that's another thing I think this game does a great job of too, is showing how all these cultures combined, and how their gods combined, even in their religious beliefs and cultural beliefs, all come together, and that how prevalent that was throughout history. But I love that Cleopatra fact, that Cleopatra and Bayek, lives closer to today than they did to the building of the pyramids.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Very true.
I stopped here for like a real specific reason, and this is like, honestly, this is when I realized how much research and time and effort was put into this game, is when I saw these stones here in the middle of the street. And I remember tweeting this out at the time, and like, it was the closest I had ever gone to going viral at the time, when I saw these, because I was shocked. Like, these are crosswalks, y'all. Like, these are ancient crosswalks, and the reason there are these elevated stones in the middle of the street is because oftentimes in ancient cities you would just have sewage basically running through the streets, or rainwater, or whatever, what have you. But you would need elevated places for people to cross, and the reason it's not just a straight slab of of raised portion is that you still need carriages and carts to be able to pass through. So you have these, horse-drawn carriages pass through, and their wheels are meant to go in between all these stone tabs, but pedestrians are meant to cross on top of them, so they're not getting their feet dirty and things like that from everything that's running in the streets. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, this is something that, like, 0.01% of players would ever even notice, ever even think about, ever know existed, but and no one would miss if it wasn't there. But the development team put in that extra time and effort because they wanted to make it as realistic as possible, and that blew me away.
Trust me, the level of research that was put into Oranges was impressive. It's flora, fauna. Even at one point, we even had the discussion of anything that we built, any location, what is the percentage of wood that you could use? Because guess what? There's not a lot of wood in Egypt, right? Even the materials, like what type of rock, all of this had to be true to the culture, to what was available to them. It's strange to be talking about building a location, a military fort, and saying, no, wait. You cannot use more than X amount of wood, because wood was precious at that point. And players probably don't, necessarily focus on that, because they're busy playing. But all these little things that we have to say, well, no, it has to feel as authentic as possible, right? Even the stones on the floor, the patterns, all these things that could just be taken as artistic choices, they're actually very informed and based on all the research that was done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that, even if you're not, you're maybe aware of them, it comes through in the end. Ooh, let's not die.
All right, I want to address the chat and say hi to them, because they've been asking some questions. The chat's been flying by, so I've grabbed as many as I could. And so thank you for sending your love. Thank you for sending your questions in. Just want to shout out some people who are sharing some love. Dr. XY said, I love this game series so much. Thank you for your incredible experience. Devster said, thank you, Ubisoft, for doing this event and these kind of games. I love it. Nick Nakamata said, I'm glad I can finally play in 60 FPS. Time to revisit Origins. And then Enigmar said, just wanted to tell you how amazing AC Origins was, thanks to the work of all the team and how it raised the accessibility of the franchise. I was able to play AC games again. It changed my life in many ways. Love hearing that stuff, so thank you for sharing your stories. That's all amazing stuff. So let's go to some questions. So Taryn Walker earlier asked, what were the biggest challenges in bringing Assassin's Creed to an open world for the first time?
Oof. All of them.
All of them.
I mean, there was so much. I mean, obviously, the going into an open world, how you play that open world, right? Because we should be able to go wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go. Trying to find this formula, going from a mission-driven system to a quest system. Changing the combat, that was huge, right? Because now you're in an open world where you can be surrounded by animals or NPCs and enemies. Changing the combat from our old system to a hitbox system, which was, it means that if you have a long axe and you spin around and the enemies are near you, you should be able to hit every single one of them. It's no longer the queue system of I'm only fighting the guy that's in front of me. Take your ticket, now serving enemy 355 step up. It's sort of all these rationalization of how do we give players a choice to basically do anything they wanted, go anywhere they wanted. There was also the big question of the desert, right? To be honest, the first time I heard, oh, we're doing Assassin's Creed in Egypt in the desert, I thought of the pyramids, but I also thought, oh, that's a lot of desert, right? Like how do we address that? How do we direct the player to pockets of content? How do we still make it interesting, entertaining? The sandstorm, that was a huge challenge. Because it has to look good, right? It has to look good, and you have to be able to appreciate it, feel like it's there. It needs to be substantial. Constructing the pyramids, that was also I think that we absolutely could not get wrong. And it's not just the visual of the pyramids, but also climbing the pyramids, sliding down the pyramids. An interesting anecdote, even I'm sure you guys probably remember there was a slight interesting factoid after the game shipped when we sort of predicted, I forget which one of the pyramids it was. I think it was the Great Pyramid, where we sort of speculated when there should have been a chamber. And
yes, I remember this.
Yeah, and then a month later, Egyptologists discovered that there was a chamber where we predicted, because we did all the research, and we knew we had to get it right. We knew people like you, Yusuf, who are Egyptian or of Egyptian descent, we had to get it right. We couldn't just make up whatever we wanted. Right. So it was amazing that our research led to us saying, we really feel that there should be a chamber here because structurally the way it's built. So we sort of theorized, and then I think it was a month or 2 months after the game was released, it was discovered and it was verified that indeed there was a chamber there. I think at one point players were accusing us of being Templars because we had this information, which is the best compliment I guess that we could get. But yeah, there was a lot of it that was a challenge, and not just honoring the brand, but also honoring the Egyptian culture at that point. It was a little stressful, let's say.
A little stressful, yes.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. Rafferty Rules Twitch said, wow, that's so cool, top tier research. And Spliff said, thank you so much for Origins. Have hundreds of happy hours with this wonderful game. Oh, glad to hear it. Thank you guys.
That's awesome. And to let everyone know too, we're going to be playing for a little bit longer here, but our showcase here of the AC Origins is not going to be the end of the stream. After this, we have news coming from AC Stories. So the Assassin's Creed extended storytelling, including comics, graphic novels, manga. So stay tuned. There will be a lot more information too about further AC stories.
That's right. And there's plenty more to come in the coming months, so please just stay tuned. We're celebrating AC for a long time. And then, as mentioned, if you missed the video earlier, there's a special event in September to learn more. And if you want to learn more about what you missed earlier in the stream, head to Assassin's Creed 15 and you'll get all your information there. But we can kind of go over some of the big highlights from what was mentioned in the first 6 minutes, Jose. And you were in that video, so we've got
Unfortunately, yes.
No, it was great. So year 2 content for ACV, free to all players. That's very exciting. Tell us a little bit more about that from what you mentioned in the video.
Oh my god. So second year of AC Valhalla free content. Obviously we're doing the second part. We just did the second part to Mastery Challenge, Tomb Soul the Fallen, and I guess there's that little surprise, the Forgotten Saga, which is let me think of my PR training to not give any spoilers. We obviously announced that it's inspired, very roguelite inspired. We wanted to sort of explore. For those of you that are fans that have been with us in Valhalla since the beginning, you probably have heard me say in the past that we wanted to explore, right? We wanted to experiment. We invited players to come with us. And this is sort of the culmination of that exploration of saying, it's such a rich brand, and taking the historical, taking the mythological, for those ancient cultures, it's literally impossible to separate the two, right? People literally woke up and went to bed acknowledging deities and all the values that they had. I think the Forgotten Saga is the culmination of that, of us saying, let's explore, let's try something else, let's step outside of our comfort zone, let's find a way to tell this story. Obviously, for the people that are familiar with the mythology, they probably know the myth of Baldur. For the players that played Dawn of Ragnarok, they sort of know what triggered Ragnarok. Having this moment to tell the story of, as a father, what would Odin do, right? To rescue your son, to get him back, to not have him live in this dishonorable death. And basically coming up with the gameplay around this moment and say, you know what, we're going to go in a different direction. It's still Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's still, if you play the main game, you're going to play this and say, yes, I get the controls, I understand everything. But also sort of turning some of the formula upside down. Much like a roguelite, obviously, you're intended to die. The more that you play and die, the more powerful you get. As you sort of get kicked out of Niflheim, the story unwraps, and then you should really understand what's happening, and you really there's some subtlety to the storytelling as to why Odin is trying and what it means to him. He's not there as Odin, the old father. He's there as Odin, the father. He's not welcome there. He's depowered. He sort of needs to build his power up to be able to rescue Baldur. I think that's all I can say without giving any spoilers. But for sure, you know what?
That's plenty.
The best part is that it's an exploration. Is the team sort of saying, you know what? Let's try something else. Let's do something else. Let's give something unique to the players, and it's free. Everybody can download it. And you have Valhalla. Yeah. It's exciting. So and to be honest, it's been amazing having the community be part of this journey with us, and we'll be listening to the feedback, exploring, trying new things, growing from the feedback. The Forgotten Saga is sort of the culmination of a lot of ideologies that we merged, a lot of new things that we wanted to try. I hope that players play it and like it. It's another E3 moment, right, where we say, okay, we're going a different direction to be experimental. We think this is really cool, and we hope players also think it's cool.
I want to point out a comment that Rad Dude said in the chat, where said Jose is great. You can really tell his passion for the AC brand, and yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if there are any other questions. So I've got one from YOBZ who said, "What's your favorite aspect about Bayek?"
That's a tough question. I think. Well, man, there's so many. I don't want to, minimize him. I think to me, the who he is, the fact that he's a Meje, he feels the duty, but it's not just a duty. It's not just a job, right? He really wants to preserve the ancient culture of Egypt, right? And it's a time of turmoil, and I think as human beings, we all have that, right? We want to stay true to our morals. We want to, make sure that who we are, what we believe in, is reflected in what we do. You know, we were talking before the stream about, you know, how kids love Bayek because he is this figure of an upstanding citizen that is there to protect the people, that is there to preserve their quality of life. You know, you could say that he's a sheriff, but he's really not just a sheriff because he honestly, really, truly wants to do good for the people, right? He really, truly embodies this role, heart and soul. And I think seeing his journey, you know, it's inspiring in some ways, because I think as human beings we all have that of you know, we want to do good. We want to do good by not just ourselves but the people around us, and he sort of embodies this and how far he will go in his journey for this.
And he'll go pretty far. Yeah.
That's a really good answer though.
Yeah, that's good.
And
answer.
like I feel that really hard because I you know, one of the things that Origins allowed you to do, which I'm a big fan of, obviously, is you know, customize Bayek's hair, right? You could have long hair, no beard, beard, long hair. You know, I tend to go for the short hair on top of the beard. You know, who would have thought?
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah. But the other thing I really like is that you can choose whether or not to keep Bayek's hood up or not, like up or down. And to me, I never put the hood up, and that's just me. There's no wrong way to do it. Obviously, you can absolutely play with the hood if you like. But to me, it was because of everything you just said that Bayek is a magi. He is a protector of the people of Egypt. He is not, you know, at this time in the story, he is not someone who is hiding and you know, working in the shadows. He is a protector of the people of Egypt, and he has nothing to be ashamed of for that, and or nothing to hide from in that aspect. And it's important to him that, you know, he is there for the people of Egypt, and that he is visible to them. So I always kept the hood down because of that.
You know, as I'm speaking, I'm realizing that maybe there is a metaphor in there somewhere about who Bayek is and sort of, you know, his evolution of wanting to stay true to the old, but also embracing the new and moving forward and finding out how he best can be there for the people. Maybe this is a metaphor also of Origins itself, right? Trying to preserve the DNA of the brand and also doing right by the players and saying, well, it's time to evolve, and we're going to take the good, all the traditions of what are AC, and push them forward. I don't know if the writers intended that, but it feels like there's a metaphor in there somewhere.
I think yeah, they would I'm sure they would tend to agree.
I just want to mention again that Assassin's Creed Origins is available on 60 FPS on Xbox and PS next-gen consoles, and there's a free weekend. There we go, free weekend, June 16th to the 20th. So you should jump back in or play for the first time if you've never played before. It's the perfect time. And so for everything you missed earlier, we had some announcements at the beginning of the stream. Head to assassinscreed15.com to learn more.
So we have our first true assassination here.
Ooh, yeah.
We've infiltrated this bathhouse. We're trying to assassinate Eudoris with nothing but our hidden blade. This is Bayek's first assassination out here with the hidden blade.
It's wild seeing this again. It's giving me total flashbacks.
This to me is what Assassin's Creed is all about. You know, like there's your target. The entrance is guarded. You're not just walking right in. How do you get about this?
Hey, you! Stop! Ptolemy is a chinless simpleton. Simonides, you have consumed too much wine. I have, and I...
Yeah, there's a link in the chat now for the free weekend if you want more information.
Yusef, do you have any hot goss on Ptolemy?
Hot goss on Ptolemy specifically? Ooh. No, oh gosh, nothing that comes to mind. Sorry, I'm a little bit preoccupied here with...
Yeah. Sorry, I'll let you.
You do your thing. You do your thing. And the free weekend. So someone was asking if it was PC only. No, it's also on Xbox, PlayStation, and Stadia, in addition to PC.
Shout out to the back hair representation, too, in this game. You know, you love to see that.
Oh.
Oh.
Mystery solved. Remember you know, those moments that we wanted to explain to players why the salute, you know, and him losing his finger and how that became iconic for the brand in a way.
Yeah, that was I remember gasping the first time I saw that of being like, oh, that's why, you know, and it was really out of desperation more so than anything else.
That forsaken shithole? I had nothing to do with that disaster.
It is too late for your lies. Anubis awaits.
I think these conversations too post-assassination, obviously it's something AC's always done, but to me they're some of my favorite parts in every game, where you get to speak to these people on their deathbed essentially, and you know what they reveal at that moment, what ideologies they hold, they grasp onto still.
Some of them are quite poetic. You know, there's quite a lot of gravitas to those moments.
Well, and even you go back all the way to the first AC, you know, Altair puts a feather over, you know, his victims, and it was, you know, it was never really explained, but then we get that explanation here in Origins, where it's, you know, it's a hair-on feather, and it's you know, it's meant to
for the afterlife.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Oh
Right,
no.
we'll be wrapping up this stream. We'll be wrapping this part of the streams fairly soon, but we have more to show you. We have a video about Assassin's Creed stories. So if you're interested in the books, the manga, more things about Assassin's Creed stories, that's to come right after this section where we're playing through Assassin's Creed Origins, which we'll be wrapping up shortly. But yeah, if you are interested in stories in different mediums, we've got more for you coming up shortly.
Should we take a couple more questions before we say goodbye?
Yeah, sure. Let's
Or
see
actually,
what we
before
have.
I say goodbye.
Oh yes. Well, well, we're saying goodbye to you. We're gonna show the video from Assassin's Creed stories, and then people will see us again tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. But thank you so much for joining us, Jose. Let's see if we have any other questions in the chat. So EDA Boy said, "What made you choose ancient Egypt to set the origin story in?"
When?
What made
Oh
you
my God.
choose? Yeah.
Oh, well, it was one of the top requests by the fans, and also going far back enough in the timeline. I think it was 49 BC. I think when the game starts, going far enough in the timeline. Obviously, we needed to visit a place and time before the original trilogy to explain what was the seeds that were planted to create the modern day Brotherhood, right? So even going back to the Order of the Ancients, going back, you know, we wanted to pick a place and time that was far back enough that allowed us to explain all these little things that became, I guess you could say, pop culture within the AC brand, and also this time and place. You know, I mentioned earlier Cleopatra. There were so many things about that era and the social political circumstances that it felt like, you know what, this is historically speaking, it was such an oddity for so many reasons that it felt like, you know what, this was a nexus of two cultures coming together, trying to coexist for a very long time, different religions, different ideologies, different political structures. All this sort of gave us a really fertile ground to say, you know what, this feels like a time where you would have seen an evolution of something, right? It was sort of like a pressure cooker in a way, and yeah, so it felt like the perfect setting to tell an ancient story about how the Brotherhood was created. Plus, I mean,
Great
it was one of the
answer.
greatest ancient civilizations, so maybe it was a little bit of a duh moment. You know?
It all makes sense. All right, we're going to bring this part of the stream to a close and continue on with AC stories. But before we go, just want to reiterate what we went over at the very beginning of the stream. If you missed it, Year 2 content for Assassin's Creed Valhalla is coming, free to all players. There's a new game mode called The Forgotten Saga, so be sure to check that out. It's a roguelite-inspired journey into Niflheim. And also, as you can see here, Assassin's Creed Origins, 60 FPS on Xbox and PS next-gen consoles. Free weekend coming June 16th to the 20th, so check that out. For everything that you missed, go to assassinscreed15.com. And there's a special event in September to learn more about the future of Assassin's Creed, so stay tuned for that. We'll be celebrating Assassin's Creed all the way until then, and even after that as well. Jose, any final words to the chat and to the audience who love Assassin's Creed so much?
Oof. Well, I mean, there's so much to play. I would say definitely try Origins in 60 frames per second, especially since you have the free weekend. It's awesome seeing it, and I know I sound super biased, but it looks beautiful. It's awesome seeing it in 60 frames. And also for those of you that are with us in Valhalla, do check out the Forgotten Saga when it comes out. It's a wild imagining of a myth that I think everybody knows. And also free, so try it, enjoy it. The best we can hope is for you guys to like it and at least be entertained.
Well, thank you for all that you do. Yusuf, so we're going to go over to Assassin's Creed Stories next?
Yeah, Jose, thank you so much, y'all. Thank you so much for rocking with us.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Jose, you are welcome back anytime. You were amazing. Thank you. But yeah, we are going to kick it now over to the Assassin's Creed Stories. Tons of information there. Be sure to stick around for the whole thing. And we will see y'all tomorrow right here on this channel as well. Chassis and I will be back playing some other games. But take care, everyone, and happy 15th anniversary to Assassin's Creed.
Indeed. Happy anniversary. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot.
Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian Bratis and I'm a community developer on Assassin's Creed. I want to start off by welcoming you all to the Assassin's Creed Stories livestream. This is the second edition to the series, so if you happen to miss last year's stream, there will be a link in the description to that video. Assassin's Creed Stories is a celebration of all the amazing transmedia projects coming from the world of Assassin's Creed. These projects, ranging from comic books, novels, manga, and podcasts, showcase the love we all have for this franchise and explore both brand new stories and some unexpected additions from the beloved heroes of the Brotherhood. We have a lot of exciting content to talk about, and we'll first start by diving into the world of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'll be speaking with writers that crafted both the narrative for the Dawn of Ragnarok expansion, as well as the companion comic book published by Dark Horse. Then, I'll have a chance to discuss a historical podcast series, Assassin's Creed Echoes of History, with the co-writer and producer of that project. Finally, we'll be shifting gears to focus on some original upcoming projects, including a webtoon sequel to Assassin's Creed Black Flag and a discussion about the Magus Conspiracy novel trilogy. We have a lot of exclusive content lined up, so let's jump into it now with Assassin's Creed Forgotten Myths. Assassin's Creed Valhalla Forgotten Myths is a comic miniseries published by Dark Horse Comics that serves as a prequel to Assassin's Creed Valhalla Dawn of Ragnarok. 2 of the 3 issues are already out now in the US and in Canada, with additional translations coming soon. Today, we're joined by some special guests to talk more about the miniseries. Please welcome Alex Freed and Alice Harakis.
Hey, Sebastian. Hello. Great to be here.
All right, perfect. Wonderful to have both of you. First, I'd like to start by learning a little bit more about who both of you are and what you guys do.
Okay, my name's Alex Harakis. I'm the lead writer at Ubisoft Sofia. And I was responsible for the narrative direction and the overall script writing of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Dawn of Ragnarok.
And I'm Alexander Freed. I'm a novelist, a video game writer, and relevantly today, a comic book writer, and I wrote the script for the Forgotten Myths comic.
It's a pretty lengthy amount of writing. Could you give us a brief overview about what Forgotten Myths is about, Alex, Seth?
Sure. So Forgotten Myths is essentially the story of Balder and Loki. And Balder is the son of Odin, the son of Havi, the most beloved of the gods, the best of the gods, god of light, a courageous warrior, invulnerable to harm. He is seeking a new challenge in his godly life, and he decides he's going to make peace between the fire giants of Muspelheim and the dwarves of Svartalfheim. And in order to do that, he recruits the help of Loki, who is, of course, not particularly beloved by the gods, particularly by Baldur's father. So the comics are basically the story of their adventures together, their wary relationship, and of course, because it's based on loosely Norse mythology, it all ends in fire and bloodshed and general horribleness.
Those stories often seem to skew towards the horribleness. So I guess obviously because there's so much interconnectivity with Norse mythology, where did the idea for this story originate as it relates to Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
Okay, I mean, the first question I think is why mythological? Because Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a very thorough game, and they did such a great job covering the historical side of the Norse culture. So for us, it was really about taking something that, obviously, in Valhalla there is a mythological aspect, but it's not the main focus of the game. So for us, it was an opportunity to actually jump in there and weave our own story and fill some of the gaps that were understandably there, and really created a great playground, if you like. In terms of the actual why this story, Norse mythology is so broad. I mean, you've got this great creation mythos, you've got so many beloved, so well-known stories about the gods and their various antics going on, but we really needed something that would allow us to connect with the base game. And the focus of the base game, when it did look at the mythological side of Norse culture, was to do with Ragnarok. And they showed how Havi, or Odin, began his journey on this road that will eventually lead him to Ragnarok and his ultimate fate. And then they fast forwarded to how it all ends. For us, it was about coming in and looking with a bit more detail about that journey there. It's kind of like when I do this all the time. When I start reading a book or watching a movie, I'll often read the final chapter to see how it ends. And then I'll go back, and it's about finding out how you got there. Most people, I think, know how Ragnarok ends, especially those who played this game. So that's not a huge mystery. The intrigue, what was really interesting was how does this character of Havi, of Odin, actually end up with that fate? How does he embrace his fate, if you like? So that was really what really appealed to us in this story, and that's really sort of what took our focus, if you like.
I think that's really interesting, especially there's that sense of inevitability where, as you mentioned, that the conclusion is known, but the intrigue comes into the meandering ways in which we get there. So obviously knowing that in terms of Norse mythology and being able to create stories from Norse mythology, it's rich universe, it's rich characters. Were you both familiar with Norse tales before writing for the game and for the comic, or was this kind of uncharted territory for you both?
For me, I had some knowledge. As a writer of over 20 years, it's one of those things that someone's always coming and asking you, let's do a Vikings project. And so you always run off and do your research, and then you come back and they've changed their mind. They don't do a Vikings project. But it does mean that you do get quite a good knowledge over the years of Norse mythology, of Vikings, etc. So once we decided to do this mythological story, I didn't have sort of like the absolute knowledge by any means, but I did have a good grounding. And then it was really very much a case of me and the rest of the creative team and the rest of the writers just going away and really immersing ourselves for a month or two in Norse mythology, reading, watching things, which is one of the best things about this job. You get paid to do the things you like doing, like researching these fantastic cultures. It was a lot of around the clock getting into the sort of like the culture of the Norse.
Alexander, do you have anything to add on there?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to hear that story. Mine was a little different. So I've been fairly well steeped in Norse mythology since I was a child, but had never really touched on anything vaguely related to that world in a professional capacity until this comic came along. And for me, it was very much, oh, suddenly I'm playing with these toys that have, you know, well over 1,000 years of history. They have all of this sort of emotional power and historical strength and archetypal weight attached to them. And it was just tremendously exciting to be working with that. You know, to write something in a script like Thor throws his hammer, or, you know, Loki shape changes into a fish. And it almost made it difficult to remember, wait, this needs to work as a story on its own terms as well. I can't just lean entirely on the fact that, you know, these icons have built up this power over so many centuries, that they still need to work as characters. They still need to have recognizable emotions and go through something that works even divorced from the mythological background.
Yeah, it must be a certain element of having to find a way to deconstruct all the things that you know that people know about these characters. Like, how do you compartmentalize all of that? It's really interesting how the kind of the blurred lines between the comic, the cover, the experience in production, and obviously the game. Assassin's Creed is known for its beloved narrative elements, the experiences it offers through its games and through various transmedia projects. In your opinion, how do comics offer a different storytelling opportunity, and do you see comic books as being a natural extension for the franchise or a natural extension to gaming?
I mean, I've always felt like an author should be playing to the strengths of the medium that they're working in, telling stories that really only that medium can do. And games have so much to offer in that regard. Obviously, interactivity is a beast that no other medium can even really touch upon. It's so powerful. It is utterly unique. And any game that leans into that really just is doing well by its own nature. A comic is never going to be able to outdo a video game on that front. It's never going to be able to outdo a video game on the sort of visceral nature of the action. But what a comic can do is it can layer in text the way a novel can. It can have just sort of, you know, subtleties of dialogue and narration that are very hard to do in other media, and do it alongside a sort of, you know, imaginative set of, you know, phantasmagorical imagery. In a comic, we can go from world to world and monster to monster all within the space of a page, when, you know, it would have taken a video game or a film, you know, months or years of work to create that many environments. And so we have sort of a limitless budget in a comics world, and all of that pairs up very nicely with the ambitions of the Assassin's Creed universe.
I'll quickly extend that question to you, Alex, but I do have to say, phantasmagorical is probably the coolest word I have ever heard in my entire life up until this point, and it's absolutely something I'm going to take with me and keep in my back pocket. I do want to say it's always cool seeing how these stories can take new shapes across different mediums. As you said, kind of fill in the gaps within each other. Thank you both so much for sharing all of your insights on the project. You can pick up Assassin's Creed Valhalla's Forgotten Myths at your local comic book shop or online retailer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian.
And now I'd like to welcome Clément Lessaf from French-American podcast studio Paradiso. Clément was a co-writer and producer on Echoes of History Ragnarok, the history documentary podcast about Norse mythology, which was launched a few weeks ago in English, French, German, Chinese, and Brazilian Portuguese on all streaming platforms.
Hi, Sebastian. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for your time. Clément, are you able to share a bit about yourself and your role in the development of the podcast, and a bit more about the studio Paradiso as well?
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, first, Paradiso is a French and American podcast studio. You said it. The main team is based here in Paris, but we have also a small unit in Los Angeles, and we produce different types of podcasts: journalism, investigations, documentaries, kids stories too, and of course, brand content such as the ones we produce for Ubisoft. I personally joined Paradiso last December to work on different podcasts, including what would become later Ragnarok. On this specific project, I was co-writer and producer, which means that during the writing process, I oversaw the work of our writer, Julie Goisé, and I wrote myself some parts of the episodes, especially the texts of Gylfi, who is the character that introduces and ends each episode. And after that, I managed the recording sessions and the post-production with my co-producer on the project, Axel Gobert.
Amazing. So I guess before diving into this project, I want to quickly ask, how familiar were you with Norse mythology as a whole? And did your experience working on this project give you a new appreciation for it?
Well, I had a big advantage here because I'm a huge fan of Norse mythology because I'm not gonna lie, Marvel movies. My first contact with this mythology was with the movie Thor. I was, I think, 16 when it came out in theater, and I just fell in love with the world. Of course, it helped me a lot getting into the production of the podcast. I already had some solid basis on the topic, but I kind of did more because I read the Edda, which is the main source of the Norse mythology. It's a small book written in the 13th century. So I read it, and I had like the official version back in the days of what was Norse mythology.
So yeah, as you said, in terms of like experiencing the content through movies and through other kind of pop culture, as well as through the Edda, the actual texts. How do you think that podcasts as a content form work so well with these types of stories?
Well, simply because it relies on the power of the voice. We are used to think that documentary equals TV or cinema, aka images. But actually 90% of the time what makes a good documentary is not the images, it's the story you're gonna tell. If your story is strong enough, then you don't need images. It's like a good book. You don't have images in a book, like not since we are kids actually, and it's just the power of imagination that does all the job, and it does it even better than a screen. So that was the starting point of our reflection on Ragnarok. We wanted something that would make the listeners dive in the story, in the Norse mythology, from the beginning to the last minute. And Julie, who wrote the text, did an amazing job for that. She perfectly balanced the historical accuracy and a novel-like narration, if you will. And from the beginning, we were on a good track, I think. I was really confident that we would have this immersion that we were looking for, and we pushed it further in the recording phase, where we asked the host, the different hosts for each language, kind of to put us in a cocoon with their voice. So we would leave the story of these gods through their voice, and it kind of feels like they're telling us the story, like, you know, around a campfire at night, and you're just listening and you're absorbed by the words. You're pulled into the story. And the last but not least part of this project was mixing and editing, and in the podcast world, that's probably the most important part. And here our team did an incredible job using the music of the game of Dawn of Ragnarok to put the podcast, the text in music, the words in music, and also adding sound design. So sometimes you're gonna have a wolf wandering around, and you're gonna have like the sound of his paws on the ground, the sound of his roar, and that's just something. You have the sound of Thor, of its hammer, for example, when he's fighting giants. All of this concourse to create the ambience, the atmosphere that we were looking for an audio documentary.
But obviously Ragnarok seems to be a concept that a lot of people have at least a rudimentary understanding of. Why do you think that is, or why people find Ragnarok specifically to be interesting?
Yeah, sure. Again, pop culture did a huge deal in our knowledge about this word. Most people know the word now, but they don't necessarily know what's behind it. And um, there are common misconceptions. Of course, people like associate it with the end of the world, which it is actually, and it's kind of the same concept as the Judgment Day in the Bible. It's the same. There are interconnections between these two visions of the end of the world, and it's really influenced by Christianity. Actually, it's not very Nordic to say, like the flames of hell burning the earth. That's in the Bible. That's the Apocalypse, and it was written like 8 centuries before the Vikings conquered England. So of course there was some influence of Christianity over the conception of Ragnarok. So actually, when we look into Ragnarok, we look into the Christian culture, the Christian text, the Bible, and that's something people don't necessarily know.
Yeah, absolutely. And hearing all the passion that you've had for this project, I think the next logical question is, can we expect more Assassin's Creed related history podcasts to come in the future?
Yeah, sure. I can't say too much now about the content, but we will meet your expectations. Yeah. I can guarantee that. We are already developing new podcasts for Ubisoft. But yeah, there will be more Assassin's Creed related podcasts with narrative stories. You're going to know more about history, some facts that you didn't know. You're going to maybe cross the way of some characters, historical figures you might have seen in the games if you are a passionate gamer. So yeah, there's very exciting content on the way. So yeah, stay tuned and keep listening to the Ubisoft's podcast.
I appreciate the expert teasing that you were weaving in and out for. One of the most exciting things for me about Assassin's Creed is this intersection, this interconnection between history and mythology and pop culture. So thank you so much for your time, Clement, for talking with us about this podcast. And if you'd like to listen to all 5 episodes of the Echoes of History podcast, be sure to check them out on your favorite streaming platform.
You want to know more about the Norse gods? A word of warning, you will not be disappointed. I used to be like you. I only knew the superstitions. I worshipped the strength of Thor and Odin and feared Loki's mischief. Who am I? My good friends, my name is Gylfi, King of Sweden. Not the Sweden of today, no. A Sweden from times long past. Like you, one day I decided I wanted to know more about these famous gods who watch us from the sky. So I went to get them myself. I met 3 of them. Their names, High, just as High, and Third. And here's what they told me.
Assassin's Creed Black Flag is easily one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games, so I'm incredibly excited to get into our next topic. Eastern Shores await Edwin Kedway in the official sequel webtoon to Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I'm joined by Etienne Bouvier, Transmedia Content Manager for Ubisoft.
Hey Sebastian, nice to be here today.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you take a moment to quickly tell us a bit about who you are and your role in the project?
Of course. So I think I'm no stranger for people who watched last year's live stream, as I was already talking about our transmedia initiatives. Basically, I'm the one helping our beautiful partners, our beautiful artists, our beautiful writers deliver on good content on the Assassin's Creed franchise. I help coordinate with the production teams, making sure that everything is consistent, and mostly making sure that everything is at the level of quality that we expect on our transmedia projects.
All right, that's amazing. Thank you. So we should probably start with the obvious question. And can you speak about what a webtoon is and where people are able to enjoy them?
Of course, because that's quite a new format, right? But new means exciting, and that's why we were so eager to explore that format. So webtoon started in Korea a few years ago. It is basically an illustrated format, and very often the artistic direction is close somehow to manga. And so it's a digital illustrated format that you can read by scrolling through your phone on an app. So it's really a vertical format that was designed at first for people to read when they commute to their job, you know. So it started in Korea and now it expands worldwide. You can find webtoon content everywhere in the world. You can read it on dedicated apps, and of course that's where you will find our own Assassin's Creed webtoon.
That's really cool, being able to take Assassin's Creed anywhere on your phone. To your point earlier about Edward being a really well-loved character, so obviously he's a fan favorite due to his charisma and his wit. How do you think the webtoon has been able to capture the spirit of that classic character in a new way?
So Edward, he's that cocky character, very funny. I think he really embodies the free spirit that is, you know, the legacy of the Assassin's Brotherhood. So it was really nice to work with such a character because he brings lots of color to the narrative you develop around him. Also, Edward, he embodies adventure, discovery, and with that project we really wanted to have those thematic pillars at the core of the story. So you see, Edward allows us to have a very character-driven narrative that conveys that sense of adventure. He's always eager also to discover uncharted territories, and since we knew that we wanted to set that story in a completely different area, in a completely new area, Southeast Asia, we were convinced that Edward would be the perfect character to support that story. What's interesting is that the story is set later in his life, so he's a bit older. He is, I'd say, a seasoned character now, and it will be interesting to see how the Edward we knew in Black Flag evolved into that seasoned pirate who still has that taste for adventure and a good fight, of course.
I have one final question that kind of alludes to something you had mentioned earlier when you were teasing. Are you able to share how long the webtoon will be? Like, how long can we expect to sail with Edward again?
So that's something I didn't explain at the beginning, but webtoon, it's a serialized format. It really works like a TV show. So you have a weekly episode launching every week for a long period of time. We plan for the first season to have 40 to 50 episodes. So that's roughly one entire year of content. And that's only the first season, but we really want to have several seasons, probably 3 at least. So if you start reading that story, you know that you're sailing for 3 years, probably, along that storyline and with that character.
Yeah, I guess that's a lot more robust than I was expecting. That is obviously going to be an amazing opportunity to relive this story and to jump back in over the course of the next several years. So I think I speak for a lot of Assassin's Creed fans when I say thank you, Etienne. Being able to sail with Edward once again is going to be super exciting. So keep your eyes peeled. Edward will be back on all webtoon platforms this summer. I'm really eager to speak with our next guest about her experience adapting the Assassin's Creed universe into novels. Kate Hartfield is with us today to discuss The Magus Conspiracy, the first novel in a brand new original trilogy called The Engine of History. These books will be published by Aconite Books, which will be launched this summer in English and shortly after in many other languages.
Very happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. Kate, can you share a bit about yourself and your past work for those who may be unfamiliar? I heard you were recently a Sunday Times best-selling writer from the Embroidered Book.
I was, yeah, that was quite a surprise. Yeah, so the Embroidered Book is my most recent novel. It's about Marie Antoinette and her sister Charlotte, but they're magicians, that's the twist. So that came out in February in the UK and elsewhere, and is just about to come out in North America. I've also written a few other books with historical settings and a couple of interactive fiction projects for Choice of Games. So I usually do work in historical settings, and this is my first time writing anything for Assassin's Creed.
That's amazing. So it seems like kind of like a natural evolution, like the next step in this history genre for you. So obviously, as this is the first time writing for Assassin's Creed for this novel, so obviously the time period is incredibly multifaceted. What made 19th century Europe the backdrop for this particular story? Although I suspect that I might know the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, one of the things I think that appealed to us about this period is the rise of assassinations, of political assassinations in the 19th century. So, you know, Queen Victoria had 8 attempts on her life, all of which she survived. Several monarchs were not so lucky. So it was, you know, there were a lot of political turmoil going on in this century, and a lot of assassination, and, you know, power was crumbling in a lot of ways. We had the revolutions in 1848 that swept across Europe, and even though they didn't succeed in all of their aims, everything seemed to be changing and the old structures were falling down. So it seemed like a natural century to explore a little bit more what was going on with the Assassins and Templars during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the nature of the history obviously brings into question the historical figures of the time. I know Ada Lovelace is a big component of the novel. How present would you say she is, and how meaningful are her contributions to mathematics play in the overall narrative?
Yeah, so Ada Lovelace we know today mostly as sort of the foremother of the modern computer. You know, she's one of the very central figures in the idea of the invention of the computer, and sort of foresaw it in a way with her work with Charles Babbage. But she died very young. She died at the age of 36 in 1851. And my book covers a longer period after that. So she's not around for the entire book, but she's a presence in it. And one thing that I found really interesting about her is because she died so young, and she had already done this incredibly formative work, and she had all kinds of other things on the go and all kinds of other projects, just had an amazing brain. And a lot of her papers were destroyed after she died because she was as scandalous as her father, Lord Byron, so many things were kind of swept under the rug. So there was a lot of scope there to imagine what else she might have been working on and what else she might have done had she lived. So I explore that a little bit in the book.
To your point earlier, you mentioned them being built as very compelling characters. What do you think are the elements that make a compelling Assassin's Creed story?
I do think character is really key to all of the Assassin's Creed stories. You know, there's so much scope to explore complex personalities because assassins are, by their nature, complex. I mean, that's the entire foundation of the creed, is that, you know, nothing is as simplistic as it might appear. Paradox is built right in, so we have the ingredients for interesting characters with internal conflict right there. So I do think that every character that we see in Assassin's Creed is really the foundation of the story, and the two main characters in this book, Simeon and Pierrette, are both complex and have you know, a lot going on and a lot of choices to make. And so I think that's what I found interesting about their story. The other thing that I really love about any Assassin's Creed story, obviously, as you can tell from my background, is that I do love history, and I love being able to work within known history and ask questions about what might have been. And you know, in a novel, you can't really recreate that incredible sense when you play an Assassin's Creed game and you're up on the rooftops and you think, I am actually in Paris, you know, like it's, you know, you can't create that sense of immersion, but you can have a different kind of immersion. And so I tried to kind of echo that sense of being there in prose as much as I could.
Amazing. Well, I want to say thank you so much for your time and for your energy, Kate. Novels are able to weave such rich narrative worlds, and I'm thrilled to be able to jump into the story you've created, and a story that you'll be able to pick up in your local bookstores or online retailers very soon.
Thanks so much.
Well, friends, that's it for today. We're working on a bunch of amazing projects, and I hope that something you saw today has sparked excitement for you to go in and explore Assassin's Creed in a different way. I'd like to say a final big thank you to all of our guests. The excitement and insights you've been able to provide us have been incredibly interesting to hear, and I also want to say a final big thank you to all of you. These projects are an embodiment of the passion that you have for this franchise, and we will continue to expand our worlds together while also revisiting some iconic characters from the franchise. So don't forget to keep your eyes out for the anniversary celebrations taking place for Assassin's Creed 15th year anniversary. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all soon.